What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 160. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011, usually every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Join the chat, join on the conversation over there. But if you can't catch it live, that is A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, sharing, leaving a comment, review, whatever it might be. It may seem small, it does help the channel out, so please make sure you do that. Today we're going to be talking a whole lot of video games, but don't worry, we still got wrestling, because topic one is going to be talking about WWE2K23. Now, a few podcasts ago, we kind of talked about some changes we would like to see in kind of, I guess, expectation for some kind of reveal event to be going on this past weekend, as of recording, at the Royal Rumble event. Turns out we did get a reveal a little prior to that, and then I guess they did have hands-on demos at the Royal Rumble event itself. I haven't seen much footage from that per se, but it did seem like the rumors were true, and that has come to fruition. So we're going to talk about what they've announced so far, features, some roster, and then the different editions of the game, and then continue to talk about, what do we think about the stuff so far, what we want from it, and we'll go from there. So, excuse me, if you missed it, this year's cover superstar is Mr. Cena himself. John Cena will be on the cover this year. Art looks great, following a similar style to last year with a kind of pastel-esque, drawing. I mean, Ray was live. I was about to say live action. It was a photo of him with the kind of hybrid colors behind him, kind of like a trail. But this, they seem to go kind of all with the colors, at least on the base game. So we have, the icon is the pastel. Okay. So you got 3 editions. You got standard, deluxe, and icon. So your standard's just your cover photo of him with some of the colors around him. You got the deluxe, which is an older John Cena with the US Championship, so Thugonomics, and then, as mentioned before, the icon with the pastel. So I think they all look good. The standard's kind of a little plain Jane, not gonna lie there, but the deluxe and icon, their covers look very, very good. So what's the difference between the 3, technically 4 if you're just gonna do cross-gen digital? What's the difference between the 3 editions? So standard edition will get you the base game. Shocker. Deluxe edition is going to get you a little bit more. And then icon will get you even more if you want to shell out the big bucks. So with the deluxe version or edition, rewind. Any edition that you pre-order, you'll get 3 days early access. I think that's all of them. Let's double check something here. Oh, is it not all of them? Okay, that's a lie. Okay, let's start. Oh, scratch that. Just from pre-ordering any edition, you get the Bad Bunny bonus pack. Yes, Bad Bunny is making his appearance and debut in this game. So you get Bad Bunny as a playable character, along with a Ruby My Faction card of Bad Bunny. If you decide to go to the Deluxe Edition, you will get early access, so 3 days early access starting March 14th, as the game will launch on the 17th. You get the Bad Bunny stuff, and then you are going to get the Deluxe Edition content. So you get the Season Pass, full of 5 DLCs, the My Rise Mega Boost, so aka the unlockable everything. Oh wait, no, the My Rise Mega Boost is like buffs to your created character, excuse me. The Superchargers unlock everything. You get a Ruby John Cena card. You get an Emerald Bianca Belair. You get a Gold Asuka, a Gold Edge, and then 3 basic premium launch My Faction packs. So just some packs for that mode for yourself. And then we have the Icon Edition. So all of the perks as listed before for the other editions. And then you also get the Ruthless Aggression content. So you get playable characters including Prototype Cena, Leviathan Batista, a throwback Randy Orton, a throwback Brock Lesnar. Then you're going to also get a Prototype Cena My Faction card, a John Cena Legacy Championship belt, okay, and WrestleMania 22 Arena. And then on top of that, you are also going to get an Emerald Paul Heyman Manager card and 3 Deluxe Premium Launch My Faction packs. So, wow. Ruthless Aggression content. Quite interesting. So this seems to be like a counterpart, or like the closest comparison is your NWO pack or edition from last year. So it's going to cost you a pretty penny. Standard edition, you know, you're 70, just how games are going. Deluxe, I believe, is 100, and then Icon, let's see, Icon's pushing a pretty penny. Oh, it doesn't even give me a price. 120. Okay, so yeah. So if you want that Ruthless Aggression stuff, you're going to be shelling out a little bit. Now, if it's like last year's with the NWO pack, the pack will come out separately. It will not be part of the season pass. It will be its own separate pack, but obviously that will be months down the line. So it's just kind of one of those things, like if you want the content right away, then you can go from there. So cool that they're including those characters. In my opinion, like nothing appealing to me, but cool that they were diving into Cena's history. So speaking of Cena's history, the features that they have announced is that Cena's going to be the showcase. No kidding. So the way it's going to work with the different showcases, you kind of replayed matches of certain superstars throughout their careers, things they won, highlights, championships, big key rivals, wherever it is. They're going to be flipping it on its head this year, and instead of matches that Cena has won, playing as Cena, you're going to be playing matches he lost, and you're going to be playing against his opponents. So, kind of interesting, in my opinion, that they're flipping it on its head this year. So we've seen 3 matches so far, I believe, that they've teased, or at least confirmed with in-game models. So we got Angle versus debuting Cena. We have RVD versus Cena at One Night Stand when RVD won both those championships. And then we have Rock Cena at one of the Manias. Based on the footage they've shown, I think there's a few others that they've teased. One I noticed last night, or 2 nights ago with the Rumble, was WrestleMania 23 versus HBK. However, now that I'm saying that out loud, HBK didn't win that one. I wanted him to win that one, but he didn't win that one. So I guess that's just footage they used. Damn it. So we'll have to see what other matches that they do add in there, and see maybe what kind of legends we can get included in the game itself through this mode. But it's a small tweak, small change to the formula, but I thought it was interesting to kind of have it so you're going against him. I wonder if there will be a difficulty spike to it with their whole slogan of like even stronger or whatever the hell it is. I don't think they would make it like inaccessible to players where it's like so hard that, you know, anyone can't do it. But there's probably that variety or difficulty variety you could pick. Just an interesting concept. So yeah, he'll be the showcase. Above that, we do have returning modes as Universe mode, My Faction mode, obviously, as I talked about with the pre-order stuff, My Rise, so your created superstar, My GM makes its return, and those are the modes that they've announced so far. So, they didn't really mention any changes for Universe mode, I don't know, I said it so strange, or My Rise. The My Rise, it seems like they're going to have 2 storylines that you can go through, just based on the descriptor here that they have. Walk through the curtains of your WWE debut in My Rise and shape your career as a superstar with the decisions you make along the way, featuring distinct storylines, The Lock and The Legacy. No idea what that entails, but I guess you can at least start your path with some kind of generic backstory, perhaps, maybe 2nd generation, 3rd generation, and then whatever the lock means. Not entirely sure. I didn't play much of 2K22's My Rise mode. I started it, just didn't hook me. I'd like to go back and give it another try leading into 23, but it did seem, from what I heard from other people who were playing the mode, it did seem like a step in the right direction. It was more interesting of an experience compared to past My Career mode. So we'll have to see. how that continues. My faction also getting a few changes. The only one that they announced right here is that now online multiplayer will be added. So similar to the closest comparison of NBA 2K with their My Team mode, you could go against, you create your team and you go against the current teams in the NBA league. Then you could go against historical teams, and then you could also obviously go against other players online. So it seems like that is now a feature. I enjoyed what I played of my faction from 22. I know it wasn't everybody's favorite mode, especially because it had that microtransaction aspect to it. I'm curious how the online multiplayer will work. With 22's game modes with my faction, it was kind of broken up into 3 different, I guess, game modes. I mean, it was just still all wrestling matches, but you had matches where it could be 1v1, 2v2s, triple threats, fatal 4-ways, ladder matches, etc. You had another mode which I feel like it was all one-on-ones, and it was like you just had to win a bunch and then certain milestones would get you something. My memory could be hazy on that. But then I remember the mode, at least that I played the most, was like 4v4s, which was fun because you got to see, a wide array of characters that you had obviously unlocked with these cards. But then the game mode kind of broke down to the same overall. I don't remember if it was elimination or it was one fall. I think it was just one fall. So everybody's trying to interrupt that pinfall, and you could kind of cheese it if you just run and smack everybody else off the apron and hopefully have enough an advantage to pin that final guy in the ring. But I'm curious to see how that changes, and hopefully they can make it a little bit more appealing and fun. As we talked about in the last podcast episode, anything that you unlock in my faction, if they decide to do more attires, better be playable in like other modes, exhibition, whatever, because that's a big incentive for maybe players who didn't play that mode to be like, oh, maybe I should invest my time in this mode to get, whether it's different character models or different attire or different attire pieces, if they want to add it to their creative superstar, whatever it is. I think they should definitely learn from their mistakes there and fix that. Like I said, universe mode doesn't seem to have any changes, at least that they listed. And then we got my GM mode, which, as you guys know, I spent a majority of my time in GM mode. Love the crap out of the mode. Really enjoyed playing it, whether it was solo against the computer or playing against Papa Griff. Just had a blast with it. They are making some updates here. So with their little blurb, with my GM, take the reins of weekly show and compete against rival general managers for brand supremacy. Now featuring more GMs to choose from, additional show options, multiple seasons, expanded match cards, and more match types for up to 4 players. So a lot of love, a lot of TLC going into the GM mode, which is great. Especially, like, I understand the limitations of last year with 2K kind of taking this mode and being their first crack at it. Excited to see what they change. Excited to see these additions and modifications that they might have learned from last year or feedback they have gotten, and see how it grows from here. Multiple seasons already is great. I mean, I honestly didn't mind it once we started going into it of it only being a year, especially if you're going to do multiple games, just a fresh roster. Doing the draft over and over again, that was fun. You could still, I'm sure, do a limitation if you only wanted to do a year or whatever it is. You could still do that drafting aspect of it. But multiple seasons, especially if you have the ball rolling, you like your roster, that's great. And sometimes it's not enough of a momentum swing back in order to catch up. Maybe this will allow for a little bit more of a back and forth with that extended timeline and not just an arcing path of domination or whatever it is. Expanded match cards, I'm excited to see what that entails. If it's just more match types, I think we only had normal, extreme rules, table, and Hell in a Cell last time. TLC was also there. So I wonder if they'll add regular ladder. I wonder if they'll add like tornado tag maybe to the regular tag team matches instead of just extreme rules, or some other type of match. Maybe they'll add Royal Rumbles if you're going to do cross pay-per-views. I don't know how that would work exactly, but I know GM modes of the THQ and Yuki's days did that. And I guess that could kind of wrap into more match types for up to 4 players. Now, this one's a little confusing, and maybe it's just me with the phrasing. Match types for up to 4 players. Does that mean for human players, or does it mean just multi-man matches, triple threats, fatal 4-ways? If it's the multi-man aspect, I think that's great. There's some times where, unfortunately, somebody just kind of gets left in the wayside because they're not in a rivalry, and then their popularity bombs, even though their stamina is great. So when you try and re-implement them into the program, it's like, well, they're not going to draw because no one cares about them. I would assume that's how the phrasing is intended, but I'm really not sure. It would be interesting to do more than a 2-player game. Do a Raw roster, SmackDown roster, NXT. I assume maybe you could do a faux NXT UK. Not that, I don't know if I would ever get that together with people who are interested. It could be fun, and more options is always better. But I'm leaning towards the multi-man match in that aspect, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I'm curious to see all the additions in this. I wonder what GMs they're going to add. Papa Griff and I were joking about it on Saturday. Like, Regal's back in there, so you could keep him in there. So you got, Pierce, Sonya, Regal. You had Shane and Steph last time, and then your custom superstar. I wonder if they'll throw in some legends, maybe like a Teddy Long. I don't think you do Laurinaitis. He's out. Maybe a Mick Foley from like Attitude Era or current. More current, I guess you could say. You could do an HBK now that he's kind of in charge of, NXT. And then, yeah, we'll have to see who they add there. And I wonder how the cards will come into play. I think the cards were a good addition to last year. I've gone and bitched about the Superstar training, how it doesn't make sense for the jobbers, and enhancement talent were nice. But from a personal standpoint, I don't want to use that card on somebody like Chester with his mop and have him permanent, unless it's going to be he's a permanent enhancement talent kind of thing, I guess, like just a filler. But I don't want to build him up to be this thing, and maybe that's just me, and like, I want the superstars that I watch the show with, I want them to be up there. But if they keep the creative aspect with it, where how we were making our own rosters, or having the NXT guys be those enhancement talent that you could draft afterwards, making them permanent superstars like they're moving up to the main roster, that's great. The retention card, a little rough, can kind of be not game breaking. I have lost with that card, but maybe making something a little bit more counterable, or adjusting that card might be a good move. I'm curious to see what the other GMs will have for them, because there were definitely ones that I favored. I think Pierce allowed you to add to rivalries 1 level. Sonya, I think, was 15 morale. So I think those are the 2 that I kind of lean towards. Shane's was ass with the network deal. That was stupid. Stephanie with double money was good. Regal had extra championships. So, okay, maybe only Shane had the short end of the stick. But I'm curious to see how they play around with that. Additional show options, I'm not sure if that just means also additive to the matches, or if it's going to be kind of the arena lighting, etc., etc. It'll be interesting. On topic, says Papa Griff, with the multiple year option, wonder if they'll do like Madden or NBA and age the wrestlers. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm not sure, because then you could, I think they might have had something similar in the Yuki's games, where you could have a storyline where it was like the legend on their way out, or you could put people into the Hall of Fame. I feel like I remember that being like, maybe not like an achievement, because the consoles during well, I guess Xbox 360 had achievements. I feel like that was something where, unless that was just the create a superstar mode or story mode, where it was like get your person to enter the Hall of Fame. I don't know if they've done that with the GM mode, but that would be interesting. And I wonder how it's going to play out, because we had it obviously in 22. The people you draft are the people you have for the entire time. You don't have to worry about re-signing any of them or any of that. I wonder if the draft, if A, it will stay similar, but it will be a year time. Well, okay, there's 3 options. Sorry, rewind again. 3 options. Will it be A, people you draft are your people, unless you have a falling out through your emails? 1. People you draft are people you have for a year, and then after that you need to re-sign them, maybe not re-sign them, go like kind of like a fresh draft, but you have, I guess, advantage of who you've picked in the past? Or is it going to be option 3, where it's like the old Yuki's games, 3 months, 6 months, I don't know if they had a 9 months option, or a year? Like, you'll have that option right off the bat of how long of a contract you want to sign. We saw in post-draft stuff, like you could sign on the talent week to week, and it would usually range from a 5 to 10 week program. I wonder if that will change, or if maybe those numbers were just reflective of the 1 year at a time game mode. We'll have to see. But it's interesting. It's enticing. I think this is definitely the most excited I am, or the mode I'm most excited for going into 23. I've already pre-ordered my copy. I'm looking forward to March now for multiple reasons. I mean, there's a lot of games that are coming out in March. We talked about the Disney trip, and now 23 finally being confirmed for the March window. It's just going to be a busy month in March, and a very exciting month. So let's talk about confirmed superstars so far. Oh, actually, no, we got one more feature to talk about. They did add a huge game mode into 23. We're adding war games. So action-packed fan favorite makes its debut in 23, delivers a heart-pounding 3v3 and 4v4 multiplayer mayhem inside 2 side-by-side rings surrounded by a double steel cage. So cool that they're adding war games in here. Obviously, NXT has made its mark with the War Games match these past couple of years, with Triple H being charged and now it making to the main roster on the past Survivor Series. Cool to see it there. Hopefully it works out well and is fun. It seems like you're going to only be able to throw this match similar to Hell in the Cell of years past in certain arenas. So there'll be NXT War Games as well as Survivor Series War Games. Those will be the only arenas to hold it. Hopefully it works all well. I think I remember hearing that you can also have the option for weaponry in there. How you will be able to control that, I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be a switch control of what character on your team you pick, and then you decide if you want to grab a weapon on the outside, similar to how they do it IRL. We'll have to see. But great, War Games is in there, and that'll be a fun addition, I'm sure. So let's talk about the roster so far. So they don't have anybody on the 2K official roster site, so we're going to use the SmackDown Hotel similar to last year, and they're pretty good with their info, and they've pretty much just taken anything we've seen from imagery or potentially, whatever screenshots that 2K has released officially, and kind of pulled from there. So anybody we've seen in Supercard, anybody we've seen in the MyGM photo, they're pulling from there and using that. So take everybody with a grain of salt, but at least from what SmackDown Hotel has kind of picked and choosed from what they can tell, this is what we got. So we got AJ Styles, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Austin Theory, Bad Bunny is your pre-order, Batista, we got Batista Leviathan, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar 02, Braun Breaker, Cody Rhodes, Cruz del Toro, Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, Edge, Goldberg, Hollywood Hogan, Both Usos, John Cena 02, John Cena Prototype, Johnny Gargano, Kevin Owens, Kurt Angle, Logan Paul, Randy Orton 02, Rey Mysterio, Rhea Ripley, RVD, Roman Reigns, Ronda Rousey, Sheamus, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Miz, The Rock, Tommaso Ciampa, Triple H, Trish Stratus, Ultimate Warrior, and The Undertaker. So, that's the list they have so far. Obviously, I assume we'll get a whole lot more as we get closer. Maybe they'll do like a roster reveal of some sorts. I don't remember how they handle 22 in their reveals. But yeah. So new people, we got only 4 so far. So Bunny, Breaker, Rhodes, and then Angle? I guess Angle wasn't in last year's. Speaking of Rhodes, as of recording, his full entrance was revealed today. Yeah. Looks pretty good. I wouldn't say amazing. Some of the pyro looks a little weird, not going to lie. But character model-wise, looks great. So, looking forward to seeing more of that. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better, too. I don't know, seemed a little quiet, at least from the video I watched. Looking forward to more. Looking to see who they add and reveal along the way. And yeah, just like we talked about, hopefully these changes, are good or compelling or interesting, and kind of build up the modes that maybe people thought were lacking and just add on to the ones that people are already enjoying. So let's move over to topic 2. Let's talk about some Pokemon games. Wow, what a diverse thing to talk about, I guess. Our other side of the bar there. So yeah, I was just thinking about it today, and thinking about my history with the mainline Pokemon games. I know we've talked about it in the past. Rainbow was a guest on not too long ago where we talked about the Pokemon games. Then I did a follow-up topic talking about the spin-off games that I forgot to mention. But kind of wanted to dive in a little bit more in depth with the mainline games, talk about my experience with them, what I liked, what I didn't like, maybe some Pokemon that I really enjoyed from each generation that they added, and just kind of talk about that for the second topic today. And the reason's kind of on my mind. We finished Scarlet and Violet not too long ago, but Lady's been really on the Pokemon train, so I've decided to hop on with her and kind of just enjoy this experience together, playing side by side and whatever. So she's been playing freaking, what is it called? It's not that one. It's not Brilliant Diamond. What's Pearl? Shining Pearl. She's been playing Shining Pearl since the holidays, and then just recently I've picked up Brilliant Diamond. So we were playing that together, and it's been a fun time. Once again, playing the game alongside of her, but it's been a little bit, I guess, different, or an interesting playing experience. Playing through this generation for the first time. So I did not play through Diamond and Pearl when they were released on the DS. Oh boy, I don't know when, ages ago. I've played maybe 10, 15 minutes of a friend's copy, and I remember running into Bidoof, but that's about it. And Brilliant Diamond has been pretty fun so far. I do enjoy, the kind of callback to how the games used to play, of going to town, obviously doing the 8 badges. Not that that's changed a whole lot from the more recent titles, but the older mechanics of you running through the grass, your Pokemon encounters are random, and kind of a little bit more of a grind in order to level up, evolve, etc. your Pokemon, and that gameplay aspect. And I'm kind of a mixed bag about it, at least with this remake. And I'm not sure if it's just coming from the more recent titles, the opposite side of things, where Pokemon encounters are not random. It's literally a big open world. You can see them flying around, walking around, swimming, whatever it is, and you can kind of play in your encounters. And the other side of it, when you battle, while XP share is still a thing in both of these games, it felt a little bit more effective, I guess you could say. in the more recent titles where it doesn't seem like it takes long at all for you to raise your team up or have the experience shared to other Pokemon, so they're growing, they're evolving, etc., etc. When tackling Diamond and Pearl, it's been the opposite side of the coin, where it feels more of like this is going to take some time, and in ways it hasn't felt very compelling to play at times. It's more of like you get sidetracked from the main stuff. So it's been a mixed bag. I like the return to form of the journey from point to point across these towns with the rival and then the big bad of the organization, and building up your team. But then for some reason it just feels limited compared to the newer stuff. So I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. So where did my Pokemon journey start officially? So Pokemon I was introduced to, I can't remember how, because there was it's been many, many years. So, memories all kind of flood together and there's no exact timeline. But I remember it was the three, just like everybody, the three big, probably tackling points that I kind of got hit by and kind of Pokemon consumed me. So there was the games. I did not play red version, blue version, yellow version until later, where I started playing yellow. Silver version was my first experience actually owning and playing a Pokemon game. Cousins and friends owned the other versions at the time, and my experience of the games, at least, were through them. Same with the N64 games of Stadium, Pokemon Snap, a little bit of that Pokemon matching game or puzzle game, Puzzle League, that's what it's called. Never owned an N64. So yeah, Silver was my first personal experience with games, diving into that. So that was one facet. I was kind of introduced to it. Then there was the card trading game. I don't remember how I got involved in it, but I do remember my parents being very, kind to me in that aspect of we knew, or at least my dad knew, a local card shop. We would go there. We would get packs. I'm not sure if he knew it from his baseball trading card days or what, but we went there, got packs, and he humored me by playing the game with me when we did that with the little hit markers and trying to okay, you need this many energy to do this attack, you need this card to do this to evolve, and all that. And those were fun times playing together with the card game, and obviously everybody was collecting them at that time. But I remember through the years, at least with the first generation of Pokemon and the second generation, collecting a decent amount of the cards there, and having that aspect of Pokemon in my life. And then the third one was the anime, was the show, Fox Kids, every Saturday morning or whatever it was. Enjoying the program there, going through the Kanto League, and then eventually the Johto League. It was another similar situation where it was mainly Gen 1 and 2 stuff that we watched those, and then leading into Pokemon the first movie, and then Pokemon 2000. I remember that was huge. I remember a lot of fond memories of that, eventually leading to what was the third one called with Entei in it? Was it just Pokemon the third movie? I don't remember. But those were all great. A lot of fond memories of that, the golden the Burger King golden cards that you got in the Pokeballs. You got the Mew card for going to the movie. A lot of silly things, but those were the three aspects that kind of got me into it. And then yeah, from a game perspective, Pokemon Silver was my entry point. It must have been around the time Pokemon Silver was released, but we were moving. My aunt and uncle were nice enough to get me a Game Boy Advance, get me a copy of that, and that just consumed me. I really loved that game. I think that still stands as my favorite, if not top two, for the generations of Pokemon. Playing that couldn't decide for the life of me which starter I wanted, whether it was Cyndaquil, whether it was Totodile. Kind of went back and forth between those two and restarted that game many, many times. I just remember diving into it, loving all the Pokemon that I was running into, figuring out the different puzzles and aspects, whether it was the unknown puzzles and going and figure out like to make the Aerodactyl or the Kabuto in the tile puzzles, or finding the different siblings during the week, like Sunday is in this location and they give you this thing, or running into the legendary dogs and they're running around the map randomly and you got to kind of time it to when you pinpoint the same location with them so you can attempt to catch them. And then getting to the Elite Four, I remember for the longest time I was struggling with the Elite Four. And I had a friend on the bus who was nice enough to beat it for me. And I felt so bad. I was like, I didn't do it. So I restarted. And eventually, I finally beat it. I remember Kadabra being a huge one for me to get past that. And then probably the best thing from Gen 2 that I loved, and for some reason they haven't brought back, but after you complete the Elite Four and you become Pokemon League champion or whatever the hell in the Johto League, you would then go to the Kanto region, just like the first games of Red, Blue, and Yellow version, and you would go through the Kanto version, and the map was exactly the same, and you know, you would fight all the gym leaders there and like go through like this new game plus essentially and tackle it. And it was just a blast going through that again, experiencing from my perspective that for the first time, finding more Pokemon and just getting tougher and tougher and tougher challenges along the way. Just an amazing experience overall. So Silver was my first hands-on game with that. Then I did play Yellow. I did acquire a copy of that and played that for a while, and had some friends in the neighborhood who had some old strategy guides, so they were getting rid of those, and I kind of consumed those and the information there. It's weird how like some of that information is stuck where like, oh, what level does this Pokemon level at? Oh, it's this, and like how that pattern has kind of stuck around in future Pokemon iterations and generations as it's gone on. I think I still have that Yellow version strategy guide over on the bookshelf right now from that game. Just crazy. Diving into those, finding out all the secrets or people you need to talk to and whatever. So yeah, played Yellow version. That was a blast, just because it also had the ties to, you know, the show with Pikachu following you around and fighting Jesse and James from Team Rocket. Fun time there. And then I talked about Silver version, if not being my favorite, being my second. And it comes into a tough competition with this next one, which was Gen 3, which was Ruby and Sapphire. Now, I played Ruby. I think this might have been one of the first games that I put, at least in a single save, 100 plus hours into. Ruby was awesome. Playing that with my friends growing up, just like it for... This was the first Game Boy Advance Pokemon game that they had. The other one's just being on Game Boy Color, but you could obviously pop it in the Advance. The graphics looked amazing at the time, very bright, very colorful. And just like any of these games prior to, you know, the age of the internet, just running into Pokemon willy-nilly and like everything's new, everything's fresh, and learning what new evolutions different Pokemon have was great. That was another one that I had a tougher choice picking a starter, but I think I ultimately went with Mudkip. He was the homie, and blasting through that game. I remember in that one they introduced like little secret bases that you could have, so you could go into either a bush or a tree or a cave in the wall, and they would have different layouts of like the ground in there, and you could decorate it with different rugs or plushies or music notes where if you stepped on the pad it would make a little chime, and it was just something stupid that you could decorate. I don't think there was any multiplayer mechanic to that, at least in that time, because online capabilities weren't that great, and the link cables always sucked. So that was always fun. I always remember picking the same like hedge or bush just because it had like a very basic layout of ground, where some of them had random holes in it, and it was like, this is dumb, this I can't decorate this well, but always went to that one and did that. And I had the Safari Zone in there. I think something that was really cool as well that they added in Gen 3. So surfing they've had since the first gen. Excuse me. And maybe Gen 2 they added waterfall. That might have been this gen as well. But the bigger thing that they added with the HMs, the hidden moves that you could only teach, well, you could teach them infinite amount of times, but it would determine you could do things in the outside world. They added dive into this one. So there was a whole section of the game where you're like on the sea floor and you have to navigate around. And one of the towns you couldn't get to unless you dove down and then like emerged in its like volcano or like mountain range. Just really cool. I remember that taking me forever to try and figure out and find. But that was neat. So yeah, Gen 3 was another one that really hooked me. And then at the time, prior to Gen 4 coming out, they made a remaster or a re-release. Well, I guess it was a remake. Or like from the ground up, they remade Red and Blue with Fire Red and Leaf Green. And I think I had Red. I don't remember. Maybe I had green. I don't know. Had one of those. But that was another one that was just a blast, just because, once again, vibrant in all its color and the remake and things that they did add to it, because it was essentially the same game, but they added kind of like quality of life things from Gen 2 to Gen 3 kind of into this. I think you could run now into that game like you could in Gen 3, and maybe some other stuff that they had added. Just fun. Just like another experience of it with the higher fidelity and graphics and whatnot. But after that one, that's where I kind of fell off. I had played a little bit of the Mystery Dungeon series, enjoyed that for what it was. But as in terms of the mainline Pokemon games, I was out for a little while. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy Pokemon or anything like that. It just felt like maybe I had grown out of that phase and it wasn't something that I had wanted to play over and over again. So didn't get a DS, so skipped to Gen 4, so Diamond and Pearl. Same with Black and White and Black 2, White 2. It wasn't until X and Y that I dove back in. I think that was on the 3DS at the time. And man, talk about a resurgence for Pokemon in my life. That was like weird, where like I had a decent group of friends that all just decided, yo, this is the game we're playing. This is we're hopping back in on this. And it was fun playing that with everybody, talking through that experience again, reminiscing on the old ones, seeing the new mechanics, how they worked in this gen that they introduced. Now, granted, talking about it now, I don't remember a lot of X and Y story or what they particularly added to that game. I just do remember, once again, it was like in those circles, that friend group, like it just was this big bonding moment for everybody that we were all diving back into it, playing it and enjoying it. So in terms of that, I will hold it in a higher light or a fonder memory of like, yeah, that was a good game. It might be one that I have to go back to and be like, oh, yeah, that wasn't great or whatever it was. But for that moment alone, or that experience alone, that was nice to get me back into it. So with this, or after that resurgence, I did decide to go back and play some of the DS titles. My buddy Kevin at the time was moving, decided he didn't want his DS anymore, so he kind of gave it to me. And he happened to have, I believe, Black. So I played that. It was another one I enjoyed. I don't remember if I didn't dive fully into it or whatever, but it enticed me enough to get either Black 2 or White 2. And that one was really good from a story perspective. It's another one where I have a hazy memory of what actually happened, or what partook in the story. Is that even a word? Partakes? Who knows? Whatever happened in that story. But I remember that one was like something clicked where it was like, this is really good, especially from a Pokemon game. Like, something's going on here where it was still your standard, like, get your 8 badges, go to the Pokemon League, but there was some other story they were telling on top of it with some individual that you would run into and how you're trying to help them. And I remember that being really, really good. I'm sorry I can't remember more details about it, but that was a lot of fun. And then what was it, Sword and Shield that came after that? I think it was, because that was one of the first ones that I think that was the gen that Lady and I jumped into, was Sword and Shield for the first time. And that was another one where, you know, it was that experience of playing the games side by side with someone. So let's see. As I pull up the core series, thanks to Bulba Garden, that's a new one. Let's see. Okay, so you got red, blue, you got silver, gold, ruby, sapphire, Gen 4's diamond, pearl, you got black, white, black 2, white 2, X and Y. You had a remaster of Gen 3 with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Oh, I skipped a gen. Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon came out in 3DS. This one I didn't connect with. And I'm not sure if I didn't give it a fair shake or anything like that. They kind of changed what they were doing. You still had the gym battles and stuff of that nature, but I feel like I don't remember how they phrased it, because it was like gym battles but you didn't have gym battles, or Island Challenge. Let's see. Island Challenge is a new mechanic introduced in Sun and Moon. It is a rite in which the players travel through the 4 islands of Alola. The goal: become the strongest trainer, known as the champion, blah, blah, blah. In order to become the complete the island challenge, players must overcome each island's unique trials, which may include, but are not limited to, finding items, completing tests of knowledge, and battling with Pokemon. At the end of each trial, a player will battle a totem Pokemon. It's larger than a species normally is, and special aura. Okay. Alright, well, with that, for some reason Sun and Moon didn't click with me. Maybe, once again, just has to be one of those ones that I go back to and give a try. And I think that's also when they started adding regional Pokemon. So you had the Alolan versions of stuff. So that just made it a whole nother layer of like, oh, okay, we can't think of new ones. We're just going to throw in the same ones as different varieties. And don't get me wrong, some of them did turn out very, very cool, like Vulpix's Alolan form being the ice and the fairy was great. Sandslash is a little weaker on the other side. It doesn't look like they added very much, unless that's version exclusive in general. But that went on a whole rabbit hole as the generations went on. So Sun and Moon came out, and then the Let's Go series. Let's Go Eevee, I tried once Lady and I were together. And I'll be honest, when I first tried it, not my cup of tea. I hated it. I've never been a Pokemon goer. Is that what they call them?
I don't know.
A Pokemon Go fan. I know that kind of swept the nation. Everybody was playing that on their mobile devices.
A goer or a grower?
Oh, geez. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of just like, okay, you're just going out and you're catching them. And it was essentially a remake of Gen 1, which I was excited for, but it was mainly all catching. You would fight, you would still battle, but you only battle like trainers, gym leaders, and Team Rocket. There was no, you encounter Pokemon in the grass, you fight them with the Pokemon you have. It was, you got all of your experience and everything through catching Pokemon. So if you caught a Pokemon, it gets you X amount of experience, and that would be shared amongst the group. And when I first tried it, no, I wasn't about it. I have come back to it since, and I did enjoy that aspect, just maybe from a more chill perspective. Like, yeah, I'm just out here catching stuff. And I think a later game that does pop up after playing that one and going back to it was like, okay, I was a little bit more open to that game mode compared to the way of the old and just battling everything. So I alluded to it earlier, Sword and Shield was after this. That was another great one. This one, playing with a lady side by side, once again, sharing that experience together. Going through the story was good, and the DLC especially. This was like, as far as I know, the first game to have Pokemon DLC. The Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, both fantastic. I think Armor personally was a little bit more fun, in my opinion. Crown Tundra afterwards added just all the legendaries and the raid battles, which could be fun. But Isle of Armor, with its side story with Cub Fu and going and kind of building the Pokemon's confidence up, and then, you know, him evolving into the bigger bear Kung Fu fighter, I don't know, was fun. And then you had the different Alolan versions, which you could get if you found hidden Diglets that were around the island. So it was another way to get those those region exclusive Pokemon back into the game where they hadn't been before because they were only in Sun and Moon. And then, yes, as Lady alludes to in chat, the Grookman gang, Grookey was the best. And I talked about starters earlier, but when I had played the games prior, only the fire and the water starters really had, you know, intrigued me until Sun and Moon, where Rowlet kind of was my first grass start I picked. But Grookman was the one that kind of stole it, and just, yeah, there was no other option, at least in that game. Who was Grookman even with? I don't even remember.
I don't remember, 'cause it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, because the other two didn't get picked. Let's see.
Score Bunny.
Score Bunny. Was it Sobble in that one?
I think.
It was Sobble in that one? Okay.
I think.
Yeah, so like Score Bunny was cool.
Score
Well,
Bunny's cute.
he was fine. Sobble was get him out.
Grookey, though.
Yeah, Grookey was the man there. So Sword and Shield was great. And then we got a little bit of a curveball with Legends Arceus. Now, I know you could probably argue, is this a mainline Pokemon game or is it not? I'm going to say it is. And Arceus kind of took everything we knew from the mainline games and just flipped it. And instead of being current day, they threw you back into, like, not caveman times, but like the olden days when people are very new on Pokemon and not really partnering with them, and they're not sure what's going on, so it's very research heavy. And even some individuals, which you'll talk to in the towns and stuff, are like intimidated by Pokemon, which I get it, it's a wild animal. And it's your helping of the discovery factor. So it's another game where catching Pokemon is huge. However, they took that mechanic from Let's Go and they combined it with the Pokemon of old where they're still battling. So you still fight wild Pokemon, you still fight some trainers here and there who are also doing their research, but you are able to catch Pokemon without ever entering into these interactions, these fights with them. So you could sneak up on them, or maybe even if you're just running away, if you hit them with a ball of mud to distract them for a little bit, then you can chuck a ball at them. And it was this collection aspect because it's research that you're doing. And it was enticing compared to a Let's Go Eevee where it's just experience based. You would still get experience, but in this one it was enticing that you were doing these research tasks in your Pokedex. So in all the other games, you catch a Pokemon, it gets you a Pokedex entry, of just like a little blurb of what they are. In this one, you would still get the blurb, But because you're still researching these Pokemon, you want to try and complete these tasks to help your research friends, professor friends, in accomplishing what they want to do. And through doing this, you could eventually unlock more regions to go and explore even more areas. So some of them are very simple. Collect so many types of this Pokemon, catch some of them unaware. If they had different varieties, if they were male or female, capturing both of them. And if you were a shiny collector, this would add to your odds of finding shiny Pokemon if you happen to complete these tasks. And shiny hunting is a whole nother level and layer of these games on top of it. I've never been a shiny hunter, but it seems like it can be fun and can be very frustrating. I do remember them adding shinies in Gen 2 with Red Gyarados, but it's kind of exploded since that point. So Legends Arceus was a fun one. It's one I haven't beaten, but I did enjoy that when I finally did give that a try, and that was the title that made me enjoy Let's Go Eevee a little bit more when I went back to it. And then last but not least was Scarlet and Violet. These ones, while having their problems at launch, these games definitely kind of turned things on its head and progressed Pokemon forward in terms of storytelling that the other ones had not done before. All the other titles, well, most of the other titles were the generic, do your 8 gym badges, go to the Elite Four, become Pokemon League champion. Scarlet and Violet still have that. However, they had these other stories with other characters that you would kind of help them progress their stories or take down an evil organization or help a wounded Pokemon or discover where this legendary Pokemon has come from. And it was really, really cool. And they dealt with some dark stuff, as we talked about with Nick and Kayla when they were on the show. So you can check that out in more detail. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Them adding on top of what Sword and Shield did with their big wild areas, where everything was that open world aspect of you could see the Pokemon just out in nature, and adding the capture mechanic to all of them there. While once again it didn't make everything run super great due to the Switch's capabilities, or maybe the games, I don't know. It was a fun experience overall. Another one fun to experience with Lady and other friends who were playing it at the same time, and we're looking forward to more. Hopefully this also has DLC, which I think they've confirmed, and we'll have to see what they add down the line. I will say some things that haven't clicked with me in terms of these later Pokemon games, starting with X and Y, has been like the region Pokemon is fine, is cute that they add these varieties, but it's a little frustrating when they're not readily available, I guess, to the player. And I guess I get the argument, like, you're not in the region, why would they show up? That's a little I guess sad at times when you don't run into them again and see that variety. Sun and Moon, probably one of the versions I'm lacking on the most. I know barely any of the Pokedex entries for them, but I'd like to go back and see what varieties they have, because I think there's like an Electrode and a Voltorb that are grass type, or at least made of wood. Yeah. Along with others that I'd like to experience. So yeah, regional ones, while I understand the lore behind it, I'd like them to show up, I guess, more regularly. And then an aspect just that I, for some reason, have never really truly connected with is the other evolution forms that they add to the games. And what I mean by that is like the, for lack of a better term, gimmick evolutions. So in X and Y, you had your Mega Evolve Pokemon. So you had your little bracelet or whatever the hell, and you find a little gemstone, and if you equip that gemstone, the appropriate one, to your Pokemon, you can Mega Evolve them in the fight. Granted, some of those Mega Evolved forms look very, very cool, and I think that was probably the mechanic I wish they kept along, but they only did it one gen. Mega Evolved, didn't really use it a lot. Then you had in Sword and Shield, you had, what was it, Dynamaxing your Pokemon? I rarely use that. And then Scarlet and Violet, you had the Terraform. Or Terraform? Terrastalize. Thank you. Terraform's the ground thing. And for me, it just, I don't know. I've never used them a lot. It just, to me, seemed like, maybe with just the Dynamax especially, it felt like, not easy mode, but like, okay, I won. Like, just kind of turning the tables in your favor too much. And maybe that was just how I was looking at it or how I felt it was, and maybe it wasn't that way. The Terra types is more just like throwing a curveball of like, oh, this Pokemon you thought was weak to this type actually isn't. It's the same. So it was like,
call an ambulance, but not for me.
Right. It didn't, I don't know, it didn't feel like anything special there. It just felt like, we can't think of anything new. Let's just the randomness of the mechanics. So I don't know. If people enjoyed them, great. Good for those people. Just for me personally, it was just never, it didn't feel like an additive. It just felt like something that was kind of shoehorned in there. But overall, my experience with Pokemon, if you didn't pick up on it, has been very good. Going back to the older style with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl has been a mixed bag. I am enjoying playing it, but at times it just does feel, I don't know, it's not like other games where you're like, you want that, you have that feeling of, I want to progress the story. For some reason in this gen, it feels like I'm doing a lot of back and forth between towns that doesn't feel like a streamlined point-to-point story as the other ones have. Granted, with Scarlet and Violet, that was also very much the same way, where they didn't give you much direction. They gave you points of like interest, but they were just like, go. And you could go to anywhere you wanted to, even though maybe your Pokemon wouldn't be leveled up to the appropriate point for that fight. This one, for some reason, with the town layout, it feels like, okay, you're going here, but you need to go to 3 towns to the right to then go back here to then go to this town that's directly next to us to go to here to go to there. It doesn't feel like it flows very well, and maybe that's a problem with me where I get sidetracked and it doesn't keep enticing me to move forward. I will say they're not Safari Zone, but they're underground. I do find that very appealing, of exploring in there, trying to find some more rare Pokemon in there, and that's how you find the fossils with the excavation. There we go. That is fun, and that does distract me quite a bit going there, but it's interesting. I wish there was a little bit more variety of the Pokemon you ran into. Hopefully that'll change maybe once the National Dex is unlocked. Maybe we'll get some more, but that is post-game stuff, so it's still a little yeah. But who am I to say? Pokemon Company, Game Freak, they've made their money, and they will continue making their money. They don't need me in there. But yeah, just a little bit more of an in-depth look with my history with the Pokemon games. Been enjoying playing them again. Looking forward to more, like I said, of the DLC, or seeing how they continue to build and evolve these games, and what they add to it. Time will tell. And yeah, I kind of wish there was an easier way to play the older ones. I think the DS had on their eShop, you could play, red, blue, yellow, silver, gold in their original iterations. I think they're still there. I don't know if the Switch has that capability. I don't think they do. But similar to, like I mentioned with Sun and Moon, kind of missing out on that. I think I still have my 3DS, but if there was a way that I could play it just on the Switch, that'd be very nice and very convenient. But it's Nintendo. The convenience factor isn't always on their side. Who knows? But this has been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma 9011. And I appreciate you guys hanging out today. If you guys want to catch the show live, you can go over to twitch.tv/Enigma911, usually every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You join the chat like Papa Griff, Rainbow, and Lady did today. Join in on the conversation, have some fun with us. We'd love to have you. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and SoundCloud the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video, an MP3 for your amusement. Did I just shout out SoundCloud? I sure did. You can get it on any podcast service you're listening to. It's falling apart. Go over there next Friday. You can check it out. And last but not least, any way you can support the show, like, review, share it with a friend. It means the world to us. Helps the channel grow, helps the show grow, and makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. So yeah, you can do that. Appreciate you guys hanging out this week, joining in on all the fun. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.